I bought myself the brand new 16 to 300mm Sigma Contemporary lens and I slapped it on my X-T50. Right after that, me and my wife hopped on our van and went off for our summer vacation. A very good one, very great places, and this is what I got with this lens. And welcome back. This is my unfiltered review of the brand new APC lens that Sigma released. It's their first all-in-one lens for mirrorless system. I think so. I think they haven't released anything like that ever since the DSLR time. And it's a lens that should be perfect for the type of travel that I do, doing pretty much everything from grand vistas to cities, to mountains, to hiking, to everything you can possibly think of. This lens is supposed to be covering you unless you're looking for the professional landscape shots or stuff like that. In that case, you would definitely go for a more dedicated lens, and I should say a dedicated set of lenses. This lens goes from a pretty wide 24mm equivalent to a pretty staggering 450mm equivalent on the telephoto end, giving you basically from very wide to super telephoto in one lens that it's not too big. You're seeing it in my hands. The lens is definitely manageable in size, but we're going to talk about that in a second. And this is even better on paper, at least, than the the rival Tamron's 18 to 300mm, which was launched a few years ago, because this starts at a more convenient, much more convenient 24mm equivalent on full frame. Now, as I mentioned, I purchased the lens with my own money. Sigma doesn't know I exist. They've never contacted me, so there's no worrying that I am biased towards Sigma in any way, shape, or form. And speaking about buying this lens was launched at $699 US in the States, but I believe due to tariffs we're now at $769, at least MSRP. In Europe, this was, I believe, 750 euros or something like that as far as launch price go. I purchased it for a little bit less because I found a good deal, but aside from that, the price is around $700, 700 euros. And so this lens is more expensive than the Tamron's counterpart, but the new autofocusing motor, the better build quality, the wider starting point definitely justify a little bit more cost if the image quality is where it's supposed to be. But we're going to talk about that later. Now, let's be clear. You should not expect from lenses like this photographic perfection. These are highly compromised lenses. It's a huge range. It's almost a 20 times zoom. That means you're moving a lot of glass. You're trying to make miracles to make this lens work. So when you are interested in something like this, you should always think that you should not expect perfection out of this lens. And because of that, I want to leave the image quality for the last portion of this video, and I want to talk to you about all the rest before we talk about image quality. This is your typical APS-C contemporary zoom lens for Sigma. It's made of plastic, but it's high quality plastic. It doesn't feel cheap at all. It's very solid. It's approximately 600 grams, so definitely not super heavy. It's a huge zooming range. The weight was going to be inevitable, but 600 grams is not a lot. It's got a very satisfying feeling in the hands. There's really nothing to complain about when it comes to the build quality of the lens. It's got a smooth manual focus ring. I used it a couple of times. It works pretty well. It's got a smooth zooming ring. Also, it is smooth, but it's also very stiff, sometimes even too stiff, to the point where you need to apply a little bit of pressure to get the zoom to extend. And as you can see, the lens extends quite a bit as you zoom in. And on top of that, they also put a lock switch on the back of the lens, just in case if you want to avoid the lens from creeping as you walk. Now, if you don't know what creeping is basically when the lens is dangling out of your neck or out of your shoulder from your clip on your backpack. And as you go down, the lens tends to extend. As you keep walking, the lens tends to extend. Now, to be completely honest, this lens hasn't done it to me, but it's brand new, so maybe in the long term it would do it. They just thought, hey, why not put a lock here and make sure that it doesn't happen. The lens is also splash and dust resistant, and it's stabilized, which is a huge help. Now, from a handling perspective, on an X-T50, so it's a pretty compact body, the one that I was using with it, the lens doesn't feel too front heavy and it doesn't feel too big at all. Of course, with bigger bodies such as the X-T5 or an XH2 type of body, this lens would feel even better. The front filter is 67, so pretty common. You don't have to buy it. Probably gonna have filters if you need them with this filter size. 67 is very, very common, especially in the APS-C world. So nothing really to complain about. And even when you zoom in, the lens doesn't become super front heavy. Yes, of course, the weight balance changes, but it doesn't become super front heavy at all. So all in all, from a handling perspective and from a build quality perspective, there is really nothing to complain about. Now, the star of the show with a lens like this is, of course, the focal range, because going from 24 to 450 equivalent on full frame is just incredibly convenient. Going from this to this in a matter of split seconds, or from this to this, is so convenient that it's hard to explain. And for example, me and my wife set up for a pretty strenuous hike. We went to this spectacular place called Campanile in Val Montanari. It's in the northeast part of Italy, and this is a very strenuous hike. It's 800 meters elevation gain in less than 4 kilometers, so pretty steep, and it was rocky and it was slippery, so nothing really too easy, very intense. And the last thing you want to do when you're going on something like that is to bring a lot of lenses, because we all know that in the mountains, you go for the grand vista, but at the same time, there may be wildlife, there may be peaks that are worth being isolated and framed isolated, and so you want to have the flexibility, but when the hike is that strenuous, you don't want to lug around too many lenses. Now, of course, this is not in the case. If you're going there for specific photography purposes, you're going to bring the lenses that you need to bring. If you need 3 lenses, you're going to bring 3 lenses. If photography is your main purpose, of course you're going to bring what needs to be brought there, especially if it's a professional shoot. But if you're hiking and you want to capture a picture of what you're doing, a lens like this is just too convenient. Now, in that specific case, I did not end up using the longest part of the range anyways, because there was no wildlife to be seen, and the peaks were too distant, and when you get too far away, there's too much air, and once you zoom into 300 millimeters, you basically have too much air between you and your subject, so the picture is not going to look good anyways. But we've all been there. We've all left something home, and the time that we have done that, there's wildlife popping out of every corner. So knowing that with one lens you'll be able to capture everything that gets thrown at you is definitely super, super, super enticing. And that's the reason why a lens like this exists. And so convenience is the name of the show with this lens, and this lens can also focus relatively close to get you a little bit of close-up, so that doesn't hurt, to add to the flexibility of the lens. And the stabilizer works pretty good. I ended up shooting very close to 1 second, especially on the wide end, and the lens worked pretty well with its stabilization together with the camera, and also the autofocus worked pretty well. Most of the time I didn't have any issue with the autofocus of this lens. Even at the telephoto end, it didn't break a sweat. So all in all, from the everything that is concerned, the usability of the lens is definitely a hit from Sigma, because everything works the way it's supposed to be working. And now I know what you're thinking. Yes, Luca, that's all great, that's all beautiful, but what about the image quality? Because we all know if all that greatness, all that convenience goes out of the window if the image quality is not good. So let's just talk finally about the image quality. And I want to start with the positives. The center sharpness is very good from wide to telephoto. As you go to the telephoto end, you need to stop down a little bit. When it's wide open, it's not necessarily perfect, but as you stop down to f8, which is just half a stop, the center of the image is pretty good at 300 millimeters, and you would expect a lens like this to be stopped down at least a little bit to get to the most of what you're getting with the lens. So center of the image is definitely sharp throughout the zooming range, and let's just say even throughout the aperture range. The resistance to flare is pretty good. It kind of surprised me. I did expect a lot more flare to get into the pictures, but honestly, it was really good and it surprised me a lot. Very good performance there. The colors are beautiful, definitely well balanced when it comes to colors, natural colors, nothing super crazy. And you also get decent bokeh for the length that it is. You're not expecting this to be a bokeh monster, but you get a decent bokeh. It's smooth enough that it doesn't bother you, and that's probably as much as you can expect from a lens like this when it comes to bokeh. So very well in all these aspects. That's all great, right? No, you would be absolutely wrong thinking that it's all great, because as soon as you get away from the center of the image, regardless of the focal range, unless you're in the focal range between 35 and 90, where the image is decently good throughout the whole image, not even the corners, as soon as you get out of the center, the image starts falling apart dramatically. There's no sharpness at all. The chromatic aberration going towards the corners, regardless of the aperture, is just abysmal. Once you see all of that, it's impossible to unsee it. To the point where I decided that I'm going to sell this lens right away. I'm not going to use this lens any longer. While I took decent pictures from a macroscopic standpoint, the moment you start looking a little bit better, the moment you want to print all of those, seeing those corners just killed all the vibes that I had with this lens. That's, of course, for me, your mileage may vary, but just no matter what I did, I was shooting f8, I was shooting f11. I thought this lens needs to be shot f8 throughout the zooming range to be sure. And when a lens that starts at f3.5 at the wide end, you would expect that f8 would be decent. I would not expect perfection, but I would expect at least decency when it comes to the image quality. That didn't happen. That didn't happen at all. And so, as I mentioned, I will sell it, because once you lose trust on the gear that you have, there's no point in keeping it. Knowing what my kit 16 to 50 millimeters can do, by the way, review over here, knowing what the 16 to 80 can do, again, review over here, knowing what the 18 to 120 can do, all lenses from Fuji, I cannot use this lens anymore. There's no way for me that I'm going to be able to accept what I'm getting out of this lens the moment I look at the corners. So for me, it's a no-go. But of course, I'm also spoiled. I thought that super zoom were actually possible because on Sony, I used the 28 to 200 from Tamron review over here. That lens, although it doesn't have the same wide zooming range that this lens has, so let's keep things in perspective. But that lens made me think that with a little bit more development, super zooms were actually possible for APS-C even with a wider zoom range. Now, of course, this is basically a 20 times zooming range that is less than 10. There's a huge difference, and maybe I'm spoiled about that, but my expectations were higher. I did not expect perfection, but my expectations were really, really higher than what I got out of this lens. Now, of course, the fact that I cannot recommend it doesn't mean that you should not purchase the lens at all. Go watch someone else's review, go watch what's online, go watch other pictures, because maybe I got a lens that wasn't perfect and I'm over exaggerating this. But again, I'm only reporting what I was able to see and look with my own eyes. That's it for today. Grazie for watching the entire length of the video. I hope you did. And I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!